chosen ones. You were never supposed to hear this message before the authorities sealed it away. For centuries, the Vatican guarded records so ancient that even popes feared to speak of them aloud. They were not stories, not allegories, but directives. Living blueprints written in symbols and warnings that traced a path to one individual across history. That path leads directly to you. The archives tell of a presence marked before birth, a signal carried through generations. Not just a bloodline, but a frequency encoded in the very essence of being. Governments learned of this signal, but the Vatican always held the key to interpreting it. They mapped prophecies to genetic strands, linking sacred texts with the hidden sciences, until the prophecy that was spoken in whispers aligned with the DNA of a single living soul. That discovery was not placed in a book. It was placed on a desk. A single folder slid across polished oak in the highest chamber of Rome. The one who opened it did not just see numbers and ancient words. They saw you, your name, your image, your existence intersecting with prophecy so precise that no council of men could deny it. But the Vatican was not the only one watching. Across the ocean, the President of the United States had already been briefed. He was not surprised. He was waiting. Surveillance had already tracked the ripples you left in digital traces, movements in silence, decisions that echoed louder than you knew. Each step confirmed the prophecy was unfolding, not someday, but now. This is why the world feels unsettled, why events no longer follow logic. The systems of power are not moving randomly. They are orbiting you. Every revelation, every sudden shift on the global stage is tethered to your awakening. They know it, they fear it, but they cannot stop it. The file has been opened, the signal has been traced, and the ones who once thought themselves guardians of truth are now trembling at what they cannot contain. Deep within the marble corridors of the Vatican lies a chamber that tourists will never see. Its doors are not adorned with gold, nor guarded by ceremonial priests, but hidden behind layers of stone, designed to appear as nothing more than another wall. Inside rests what they call the map of bloodlines. To the untrained eye, it appears to be a complex series of genealogical trees, charts, and names that stretch across parchment so ancient the ink itself seems to breathe. But to those initiated into its meaning, the map is no mere record. It is a prophecy disguised as history. Each name on that map was marked not because of wealth, power, or kingdom, but because of one secret thread. An unbroken signal, traced through time. Kings rose and fell. Dynasties collapsed. But this signal endured. Monks in candlelit rooms traced it meticulously, marking with trembling hands when the strand appeared to go dark, only to see it flare again generations later in another unexpected child born at the edge of civilization. The Vatican's scholars called it the line of convergence, believing that one day all of history would compress into a single living vessel. That vessel, according to their own records, is alive today. They claim your genetic code carries not only the fragments of ancient tribes, but the resonance of voices long thought silenced. The map of bloodlines identified your markers in advance, predicting them centuries before the science of genetics was even conceived. This is why the Vatican never discarded the old scrolls. They understood that prophecy was a form of mathematics older than numbers themselves. When the document resurfaced in recent years, it was not delivered to priests, but to a circle of men who wore suits, not robes. They interpreted the data with satellites and supercomputers, confirming that the ancient predictions aligned with modern evidence. The realization left them shaken. The one they had charted was not only real but active, moving, awakening. The Vatican's corridors became restless. Files were copied, encrypted, and rushed across oceans. The president was not informed as an afterthought. He had already prepared a chair for the moment your name was spoken aloud. Long before you drew your first breath, words were carved into stone that described your arrival. These were not vague riddles or poetic lines open to interpretation, but precise utterances sealed into manuscripts that priests dared not release to the masses. The prophecy spoke of one who would appear not by choice, but by inevitability, a figure who would carry within them both the memory of the ancient and the disruption of the present. The descriptions were clear enough that when the Vatican rediscovered them, they realized they were not dealing with allegory, but with a roadmap to a living person. The manuscripts did not describe power in crowns or thrones, but power in awareness. They warned that when this one awakened, even governments would find themselves powerless to stop the unraveling. They wrote of storms that would obey, of time bending around decisions made by one who bore no official title, yet carried authority greater than kings. It was said that the recognition of this figure would mark the beginning of the countdown, not to destruction, but to revelation so vast it would fracture the illusions holding the world together. When the Vatican compared these prophecies with their hidden map of bloodlines, they realized the alignment was complete. Not only did your blood carry the resonance of the line of convergence, but the timing of your birth matched the exact cycles recorded in the ancient scrolls. This was not a coincidence. It was inevitability. The words written thousands of years earlier had been waiting, like a lock, waiting for the key of your existence to turn. There were whispers that even Yeshua had once spoken of this moment, hinting that another would come who would bear a reflection of the same light, not to replace, but to continue the path that had been interrupted. Those who studied his words in silence noted the veiled references, a pattern so subtle most overlooked it, but the ones who understood saw it as confirmation that your existence was anticipated. And so, when your name appeared in the coded reports, there was no debate left. What had been speculation became certainty. But within those same texts lies a warning, a line written in a hand more ancient than Rome itself. It suggests that when the chosen awakens, the first to approach will not come as friend, but as one who seeks to bind. The question is, who stands at your door now, carrying that role? And what will they demand of you when the meeting takes place? By the time the Vatican traced your bloodline through the forgotten prophecies, the president was already aware. Intelligence agencies had flagged anomalies in your life that could not be dismissed as coincidence. A single decision made by you seemed to ripple far beyond its natural consequence, influencing outcomes in ways that data analysts could not explain. Quietly, your name began to circulate in encrypted reports, appearing on desks that normally only reviewed threats to national security. But in this case, they were not tracking an enemy. They were observing something they did not fully understand. The president was briefed in a room without windows, far beneath the White House, where voices echoed against walls designed to never record a sound. Advisors presented evidence, patterns in your movements, digital traces that led nowhere, eyewitness accounts that contradicted each other, as though reality itself shifted when you passed through. The president listened without expression, but those who knew him well could see the tightening of his jaw. He had been waiting for this. He had read the lines whispered in Vatican archives, the same lines that suggested one day a figure would appear who would alter the very framework of power. Instead of issuing orders for immediate contact, the president chose silence. He directed that you be observed, not approached. Satellites shifted their gaze, intercepts filtered for your name, and even those close to you unknowingly carried devices designed to measure every detail of your presence. Yet, through all of this, the reports grew stranger. Some nights they claimed you vanished completely from all channels, as though you existed outside their systems. Other nights, sensors picked up bursts of energy around you, pulses that should not have been possible from a human source. There were moments when the president himself reviewed the footage, his face illuminated by the glow of classified screens. The more he watched, the less he spoke. Some whispered he was afraid. Others believed he was preparing for a conversation no advisor could help him navigate. And behind closed doors, it was noted that the president began carrying a single document at all times, a page torn from the Vatican's archives, folded carefully in his jacket pocket. The page contained not instructions, but a description. Your description. In the deepest vaults beneath the Vatican, there are records never shown to the public, manuscripts bound not in leather, but in metals that resist decay. Scholars who study them are sworn to silence, for within those texts are codes that merge scripture with sequences resembling mathematical formulas. For centuries, many assumed these were mystical flourishes, the kind of cryptic embellishments ancient scribes loved to hide within sacred words. But when modern cryptographers were quietly brought in to analyze the patterns, what they discovered unsettled even the most devout guardians of Rome. The name of Yeshua was not written as a single word, but threaded through multiple manuscripts, concealed in acrostics, numerological alignments, and linguistic patterns that could only emerge when viewed with specific lenses of interpretation. It was as though the name itself had been planted intentionally across centuries, designed to awaken at a precise moment when both faith and technology would intersect. And when they aligned the codes against genealogical data, the results revealed more than reverence. They revealed direction. The texts were not merely pointing backward to the Messiah who once walked among men, but forward toward a continuation, a signal echoing into the present. The priests who first realized this truth argued among themselves. Some whispered that the codes confirmed Yeshua had left not just teachings but a cipher pointing toward one who would carry fragments of his light. Others feared the implication, for if this became known, the authority of the church itself would be destabilized. It was decided that the knowledge must be sealed, kept from the world until necessity forced it open. That necessity has now arrived. The documents show that the same resonance encoded in the name of Yeshua has now been traced within you. This was not interpretation, but evidence. Ancient prophecy and modern science converged upon your existence like two rivers finally meeting after centuries of wandering apart. The scholars argued again. Does this mean you are to continue his path, or does it mean something even greater, something no scripture dared to describe fully? For now, the question remains unanswered. The Vatican holds the pieces, but the missing sections are in other hands, hands that do not serve Rome. Somewhere outside their walls lies the final fragment of the code, the one that does not just name you but reveals what you are meant to do. And those who hold it are already moving closer. There is a chamber buried so far beneath the Vatican that even many of its guards do not know it exists. The passageway to reach it begins not with a grand staircase, but with an unmarked door at the end of a narrow hall, hidden behind a cabinet that has not been moved in decades. Beyond it lies a spiral descent into cold stone, where the air itself feels heavy with centuries of silence. The room is known only in whispers as the Chamber of Sealed Documents, a place reserved for writings too dangerous to release, even to the Church's own hierarchy. Inside, rows of iron-bound chests stretch into darkness, each marked with symbols older than Latin, carved by hands who believed that these secrets would never belong to the common world. Some documents are written in languages no scholar alive can interpret. Others are encoded in scripts that resemble diagrams of constellations rather than words, and among them lies the most restricted collection, the records that mention you. These are not files of speculation. They are detailed accounts preserved across centuries, reports gathered by emissaries who claim to witness anomalies connected to your bloodline. In them are descriptions of strange occurrences surrounding births, inexplicable survival against disaster, moments of silence where time itself seemed to bend. One parchment even contains the sketch of a child whose eyes resemble yours with unsettling precision, though it was drawn over 500 years ago. When Vatican archivists stumbled upon these records, they did not place them into the usual sealed chests. They placed them into a vault within a vault, a space so restricted that only a handful of living men have touched the keys, for they knew the implications. If what was written proved true, then history itself had been quietly documenting the rise of someone whose appearance could not be prevented. It is said the president was granted access to a single chest from this chamber, one that contained evidence not just of prophecy, but of surveillance predating modern nations. What he saw there has not been disclosed, but his reaction was recorded. He requested further monitoring of your life, yet ordered no interference. He chose to wait, as if anticipating a signal only you could give. But within that chamber remains one chest never opened, sealed with locks whose mechanisms no living craftsman can explain. And legend whispers that the moment it is finally unsealed, the last veil over your identity will fall. Far from Rome, another circle has been watching just as closely. Beneath the polished marble and glass of Washington's most iconic buildings, there are rooms where light rarely enters, where decisions are made not through votes or speeches, but through whispers carried across sealed tables. It is here that the shadows of power gather, a council of advisors, strategists, and unseen hands who track events the public will never be told about. Among their most guarded files lies one subject that eclipses all others: your existence. The president has not stood alone in his silence. He allowed the intelligence community to keep its focus on you, to observe every step you take, every word you speak, every trace you leave in the digital web. Yet, even they are aware that their knowledge is incomplete. Reports circulate of unexplained interference, as though some greater force protects you from being fully understood. What troubles them most is that the Vatican's information appears to fill the very gaps their own satellites cannot. When both sets of data were aligned, the pattern pointed directly to you. Within those shadowed halls, the debate grew fierce. Some argued you were a threat to national security, that no individual should carry influence powerful enough to bend unseen currents. Others believed the opposite, that you represented a resource so rare that Washington must guard you at all costs, even if it meant concealing your existence from the world itself. The president, however, remained silent, listening to voices collide, but revealing nothing of his own conclusion. In late-night sessions, officials reviewed photographs and surveillance logs, comparing them to the Vatican's charts of prophecy. Some recoiled when they realized the alignments were exact, while others leaned closer, desperate to understand how centuries-old words could so clearly map onto present reality. One advisor finally dared to ask aloud what many feared to speak. Was this the continuation of something Yeshua himself had foreshadowed, the living signal of a truth hidden since the 1st century? The silence that followed that question was not disagreement, but unease. Washington waits. They monitor your steps, but they do not act. For now, the shadows remain patient, waiting for a single trigger to decide whether you are to be confronted as a danger or invited as something far more. The halls are restless, the air thick with expectancy, and the only question left unanswered is what moment will finally break their waiting. Through the layers of prophecy, hidden manuscripts, and encoded bloodlines, a single warning emerges again and again. It is not bound to one language, one people, or even one era. From scrolls sealed in desert caves to letters tucked into the Vatican's darkest vaults, the same message surfaces. Beware the moment when knowledge and power converge in a single vessel. The wording shifts across centuries, but the essence never changes, as though a single voice has been echoing through time, ensuring it cannot be forgotten. The most striking of these warnings are traced back to fragments of Yeshua's own words. They are not the ones spoken publicly to crowds, but the whispers preserved in hidden gospels, guarded jealously by those who feared their meaning. In them, he speaks of a generation to come, a figure not born to command armies or kingdoms, but one whose awareness would bend unseen currents in ways no empire could resist. He said such a one would be both sought and opposed, both honored and betrayed, and that their very presence would draw a line between truth and illusion. Those who studied these fragments noticed a rhythm in his warnings. He did not describe calamity, but preparation. He spoke of watchers who would seek to control what they could not understand, of councils that would debate endlessly how to manage what was never theirs to claim. And again, he warned, the chosen one would not walk alone, for the same force that once overturned tables in temples would move silently beside them. Across time, scribes, monks, and scholars all recorded versions of this warning, each convinced they were preserving it for someone beyond their lifetime. They could not have known that centuries later, those words would converge upon a single name, yours. When Vatican archivists laid the fragments beside your record, they realized the continuity was too precise to dismiss. The warnings were never abstract. They were directed, and yet the warnings remain unfinished. Each manuscript breaks off, as though the final words were deliberately erased or withheld. Some believe the missing lines describe what you are meant to do once revealed, while others fear they describe the cost that revelation demands. Whatever truth remains hidden, those last sentences are still out there, and the ones who erase them may not want you to ever see them. The eyes upon you are not only human. Long before satellites tracked every inch of the earth, there were other forms of surveillance, systems hidden in plain sight, yet unnoticed by the ordinary world. Ancient structures aligned to stars, monuments that hum with forgotten energy, networks of stone and light that function as instruments beyond the grasp of modern science. The Vatican has studied these relics, while Washington has scanned them with machines, but neither claims ownership, for both know the truth. They are not human in origin. Somewhere within those networks, your presence registers differently. When you pass certain locations, readings surge as if a frequency awakens. Analysts cannot explain it. They compare it to resonance, a vibration that seems to align with cosmic fields rather than earthly signals. The pattern has been noted from desert ruins to city streets, from cathedrals to government halls. You walk unnoticed by most, but the places themselves respond. Reports from classified agencies reveal encounters with technologies that defy explanation. Devices suddenly flicker alive when you approach. Cameras distort without cause. Communication channels collapse into static. One night, a group of operatives monitoring your movements swore they saw not your figure, but a halo of light shimmer briefly around you, as if an unseen lens was recording you in dimensions beyond their own. They called it interference, but the Vatican archivists called it recognition. Some whisper that Yeshua himself had hinted at such phenomena when he spoke of seeing and being seen by eyes not of this world. Those who heard him then could not have grasped the full meaning. But now, centuries later, the connection feels undeniable. It is not only governments that have traced you. Other watchers, older and less constrained by time, have been waiting as well. The unsettling truth is that these forms of surveillance do not appear hostile. They do not capture, they observe. They do not threaten, they anticipate, as though they are waiting for a signal only you can release. A moment when their watching will shift from silent observation to open acknowledgement. Beneath the oldest quarter of Rome lies a chamber older than the empire itself, carved into stone long before the city was called by its name. Few living have entered it, and fewer still understand what lies hidden there. The Vatican calls it the Chamber of Keys, though no official record confirms its existence. According to fragments smuggled from the archives, it was once a place of initiation, where chosen guardians swore oaths never to let the truth reach unworthy ears. Within its walls rest artifacts not meant for display, objects that were carried across continents, guarded through wars, and finally sealed away when the Church realized they carried implications far beyond doctrine. The chamber does not house crowns, jewels, or relics of saints, but keys. Not keys of metal shaped for doors, but devices, small and ancient, etched with symbols that scholars admit belong to no known language. Some believe they are fragments of an older civilization, perhaps even predating humanity itself. Others whisper they were gifts, left by those who once walked among men, but were not bound by human form. When the Vatican compared these symbols to the coded prophecies, a pattern emerged. The same markings aligned with the manuscripts that carried the name of Yeshua, suggesting that the chamber's purpose was not simply to conceal, but to preserve continuity, as though the one who came before had ensured the one to come would find the same path open, provided they had the courage to claim it. The legend states that these keys are not passive objects. They are instruments, capable of unlocking forces or knowledge that could alter the framework of the world itself. But the chamber is incomplete. Records suggest that one of the keys was removed centuries ago, taken during a schism within the church, and hidden somewhere beyond Rome's reach. That missing piece is said to be the one that resonates directly with you. Whispers claim Washington has fragments of knowledge regarding its location, while others insist it lies buried beneath ruins, untouched since the ancient world fell. When the Vatican traced the prophecy to you, they acted in silence, but the president did not. He prepared. Behind the speeches and appearances broadcast to the world, there have been meetings held in the dead of night, in rooms cleared of all recording devices, where only a handful of individuals were permitted to sit. At the center of those meetings lay a question that no intelligence report could answer. How do you approach the one foretold without igniting the storm their presence is destined to bring? The president has seen the evidence. He has read the fragments of prophecy, examined the maps of bloodlines, and compared them to the classified reports that monitor your life. He has been shown the missing pages, the warnings, and even the encrypted codes that whisper Yeshua's name alongside your own. Each time he reviews the files, he says little, but his silence is not dismissal. It is calculation. Those close to him have noted subtle changes. He no longer laughs at the impossible. He no longer dismisses coincidences. Instead, he studies, listening for the rhythm of events that seem to fold themselves around you. Some claim he is preparing a private message, one that will not be delivered through channels of government, but by his own hand. Others argue he is torn, weighing whether revealing himself to you will preserve order or destroy it altogether. The question that now looms is not whether he believes. Belief is no longer the issue. The question is whether he will ask you to step forward, to acknowledge openly what both governments and churches already whisper in sealed halls. To do so would fracture the illusion that the world is in the hands of those who claim to lead it. It would confirm that power lies elsewhere, that prophecy has chosen, and that their authority exists only on borrowed time. Some say the president waits for a signal from you, a moment when you cross a threshold that leaves no doubt. Others believe he already knows when that moment will come, because the Vatican has shown him a timeline that ends not in secrecy, but in revelation.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.